Wait, what? Disconnecting my keyboard broke that? Are you kidding me? Right. In about 5 years. Okay, I'm not ready with the picture. 1 second. It has been 5 years since this. You know what? I think it's time to get over it. You know? We're gonna try to get over it. By trying to, well, do what 5 years ago I couldn't. I will use this exact same profile. I don't even care anymore if like a demotion happens or anything. I will use this exact same profile. Whatever happens will happen. That's what you're going to be doing. Just give me a second though. Okay, I think I've configured my keys properly. I'm gonna warm up with one game. And then we'll start. For real. And I've bound my keys improperly. That's great. 1 minute. My keys are not bound properly. Put the wrong thing on the wrong key. That's great. Come on, Notepad++, you can do it. Load the 100-something files I have open. I'm pretty sure I did this properly. It's A, B, C, D. X, C, and V. 59. If 59 is X, V is 56, C is 43. Why do I have to press B to continue? That doesn't seem... I swear I rebound my keys properly. Hang on. So, you have to unplug my keyboard every single time I start this thing up. It's so annoying. Am I losing it? Hold on.
Letting go.
Wait. My X button is working. What? X isn't working. What? Hello? It worked before this. Oh, come on. Did I break something? I didn't even do anything. Why did this break? Oh, I set it to Y. Oops. 59 is Y. 58 is X. Oops. That explained that. Unplug my keyboard again. Okay, now hopefully it should work. Now it should work. Yeah, that's better. I have to practice warm up first.
Go.
Absolutely messed up post 1000, but that did feel great. I'm so sorry. I gotta go find my password. There we go. In 5 years. Let's do this. One more practice run. Keep mixing up my S's and Z's. I never realized how hard it is to see the green bone blocks against the dark background. I think that's enough warming up. Let's begin.
Ready, go.
I will never escape the fraud allegations. That's probably like an MO or something, or just a plain MM. Okay, that's probably that didn't feel like an MM plus. It just felt like a normal MM. I didn't do very well on the invisible part. I think I only got 3 Tetrises. I don't know if I got 14 more line clears after that. That might have just been a normal MM. Maybe. Oh, hey, Graf. Yeah, it's been 5 years since I've touched this profile. I want to finally get over it.
Letting go.
Oh. 8. I have that issue with mine, but for some reason it works when I unplug my keyboard before starting the game. I don't know, it's weird. Or I guess if you unplug all of your controllers if you have any. Yeah, it's weird. I can't explain why it does that. I was not paying attention to the timer, whoops. A Tetrachrome is good, yeah. Fair enough. The problem is a very good game. Now, will I stop misdropping? I'm gonna lock in. GG. God dang it. Wow, that is horrible. I think Textmaster for TGM1 is relatively accurate enough, though. I think TGM1 is like the perfect way to teach someone how to do 20G, because it doesn't ask for anything particularly fast. I'm just going to do this mode just to... How was it? What am I gonna say? I guess just so then I don't get too tilted, I'm gonna play a different mode for a bit, and then come back. They finally fixed the control issues in TGM4 not last Friday, but the Friday before yesterday. It's great. Ah, that's fair enough. I think, yeah, the price is slightly steep. It is understandable. I mean, maybe not slightly steep, it is a little steep. I will say though with TGM4, they have somehow concocted a mode that is harder than this. And not by making it faster. Well, not... Well, with an asterisk, because it gets close to this level of speed. I mean, to the maximum speed of this mode, but never quite reaches there. The difficulty comes from other places. Although maybe it is a bit overcooked. I will say, I think they might have overcooked the difficulty of the new death mode in TGM4, which confusingly needed to be called Master because of guideline reasons. The fastest the mode gets is section 900. Well, yeah, the 900 to 1000 section. But it actually slows, like, uncharacteristic for a mode like this. It slows down again after 900. But there's a reason why it slows down after 900. I don't want to spoil it unless you don't mind spoilers.
Letting go.
Nice. Yeah. I don't know if you were here when I said it. Okay, yeah. So I'll just explain it right now because I need to get my words straight. So the difficulty in TGM4 Master doesn't come from speed directly, because they've actually made it in such a way that both rules get move reset. Both the TGM rule and the standard rule that you can select both get move reset, surprisingly enough. However, in Master Mode, I would argue that in the entirety of TGM4, they've made Standard Mode the more difficult mode. They've made World Rule the harder difficulty. I don't know how they've done it, but they've managed to do it. Especially in Master. Because at 1000, the game slows down again from close to 1000 speed and introduces a brand new gimmick. Cyclone. Cyclone randomizes the spawn rotation state of every single piece. Can you tell how that will absolutely mess with somebody using super rotation? You know how like how ARS is pretty predictable and you can kind of just work around its limitations? Imagine trying to mess with that at like... It speeds at around about equivalent to Shirase 600 that it slows down to, and every single piece has its rotation state randomized. However, you only get to see the randomized state on the next piece. you don't get to see it on the rest of the next queue, only on the immediate next piece. So you're essentially restricted to one next after 1000. But that's not all. They kept adding even more gimmicks. 1200 removes both rules move reset and resets them back to step reset, as if you were playing classic rule in TGM3, or, you know, just how it is in TGM1 and 2. SRS with step reset is way more cursed than than it sounds. Let's put it that way. But that's not all, because 1300, immediately after it starts restricting you back to step reset, while also having to deal with the randomized spawn states, 1300 introduces yet another new gimmick. So just like in the Masters of Round demo, in the earlier sections of Master, or what used to be called the rounds, there's these sections called peaky sections, where you have like half the field frozen, and you gotta basically make lines in there without them clearing. So you can't really clean up, but until the section is over, right? And in Master Mode, you also collect badges for doing all clears, Tetrises, T-spin doubles, T-spin triples in Standard, or if you make complete lines during those frozen sections, the peaky sections, pre-1000. Those badges will now come into play, because 1300 introduces a gimmick called Master Peaky, where starting at 2 frames and increasing by some amount for every badge you collect, before you reach, by every badge you collect, if you place a piece after 1300 and you don't clear it before that frame timer runs out that has been extended by your badges, the piece will freeze, becoming completely unclearable. If you've ever experienced what hard block is like in Heberis, imagine that, except you can't even clear it. It just won't clear. The only way to remove these completely frozen blocks is to clear a Tetris, which only removes the bottommost row inside your matrix. And remember, you're still dealing with this while your move reset has disappeared, and while the piece random states, while the piece rotation spawn states are still randomized. Oh yeah, and it also still gets faster even after slowing down at 1000. So yeah, you gotta get used to that step reset, I guess. You see what I mean when I say they've somehow made Standard or World Rule the more difficult rule? Because imagine doing that in SRS. The credits roll is also, well, reportedly, the credits roll is also completely insane for Master. So first off, you know how I said Master Peaky begins at 1300? Reportedly, the mode ends at 2600. Sure, it's not gonna take that long to get there, because after you collect certain amounts of badges, you get bonus levels to your line clears. But yeah, that's still quite a lot of levels. $2,600 is very far, let's put it that way. And even if you make it that far, people have, I guess, they've like attempted to figure out what the credits roll looks like, and the credits roll is completely and utterly insane. So what it does, reportedly, I don't think anyone's ever reached it legitimately yet, is, let's see, it rewinds 150 pieces. Like, genuinely, it just rewinds back the same 150 pieces that you placed, and you get those same 150 pieces and more again. It also rewinds your level and section all the way back to where you were 150 pieces ago. And then you have to make it back to 2600 within 65 seconds. Oh yeah, and when you want to reach the credits in the first place, and probably when you want to go back to 2600 when you're in the credits roll, you have to clear a line that hasn't been frozen by Master Peaky. So all the Minos inside that line have to be completely unfrozen. So you have to clear a line extremely quick. before they freeze. I don't know why they cooked Master Sword. And apparently there's still even more that they haven't added to avoid people like data mining the game to find it. I don't know what on earth they're even planning to make that harder than it already is, because I'm pretty sure it's already at the limit of human reactions. But sure, I guess. And when I say they made standard mode harder, they also made standard mode harder in 2 of the other non-standard modes. There's a mode called Konoha, where you have to just make all clears in big mode, right? And, you know, it's a time-limited mode where every line clear and all clear gives you extra time until level 1000, where only Tetris all clears gives you extra time. TGM rule starts with 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Standard rule starts with 2 minutes. So you start with less than half the time of TGM rule on standard. And in the other mode, which is the other mode that can be played with both rules, which is Asuka, which is essentially like TA Death++, standard mode is still at a disadvantage, because in Asuka mode, it's a mode where you have 7 minutes to reach 1300. It's a 20G mode where you have to reach 1300 with 2 special gimmicks. You can undo your piece placements at any time as long as it doesn't rewind you to a previous section. And you also have infinite resets in that mode. However, you're limited to 7 minutes, like unconditionally. You have 7 minutes to get to 1300, and that's it. You can't get any more time. Standard rule is still at a disadvantage because they added this special feature exclusive to TGM rule called the extra button. There's just a button in the control scheme that's labeled extra, and what it does in TGM rule only is that it turns your sonic drop and soft drop with lock into hard drop and normal soft drop. But there's another side effect. It also reduces ARE to like 3 or 4 frames. Maybe even less. Maybe 2 frames even. It's like a really low amount of time. And I think with a bunch of calculations, and if you look at the speed table, you can save like 40 seconds just from holding the extra button from 0 to 500. Which is enough time to get you through maybe halfway through 1100 and then all the way through 1200. Especially with the fact that 1000 is fading, 1100 is faster fading, and 1200 is just straight up invisible. Yeah, TGM3 Master is no longer the fastest invisible stacking in TGM. Asuka 1200 is now the fastest invisible stacking, technically, in TGM. There is probably only one place where standard rule has maybe not an advantage, but it's on equal footing with TGM rule. That is the versus CPU mode, because out of all the things in the game, they have cooked with the CPU. If you've ever seen Tetris Online Poland or Japan tier 20 bots, you know how they're difficult simply because they play at like Mach 1? Yeah, the bots in TGM4 are actually hard simply because they play well. They know openers. They can even pull 4 wides on you. They have an extremely good downstack. Like, their downstacking game is insane as well. The rules are balanced in that mode by having them buff different things. So, in the versus mode, back-to-back only affects Tetris, right? And so they made it so that standard rule unconditionally sends 1 extra line for T-spin clears, and TGM rule unconditionally sends 1 extra line for Tetrises. But yet, I am on CPU tier like 40-something, and I am stuck there because the CPU is just too good at downstacking out of a difficult situation. And not only that, they've also, I think they've really cooked on the CPU, because this is with the fact that the CPU is unable to use the full 60 hertz ARR until the maximum difficulty. And it's still absurdly difficult, even while it's got one arm tied behind its back. And apparently, they've also decided, you know what, that's not enough. If you've played the mode enough, it gives you a hidden tier, tier 0, in which the CPU starts learning off of you. So if you use the same opener a couple times, it learns that opener. If you use the same downstacking pattern enough times, it'll use the same downstacking pattern. They've actually made one of the most intelligent Tetris CPUs in any Tetris game to this date, and just casually dropped it into TGM4. One moment. Honestly, I have no idea what is up with TGM4. I think the strangest thing to date in terms of its game modes is the fact that they've kept the something all the way since its original Masters of Round beta test, where the two rules cannot play their basic modes, each other's basic modes. World or Standard rule gets Marathon, and it's just 150-line Marathon. You can't even have 200-line or Endless. I hope they add that soon. And TGM rule gets this mode called Normal, which is basically like a enhanced version of TGM2 Master with a different grading system. So they were told they had to make the grading system simpler. They did. But they also made it extremely difficult to get the max grade in Normal. So in Normal, your grade is not given as, you know, the 9-to-1, S1, S9, GM. It's not given that way. It's given as two numbers, A of B. B is simple. Every 111 levels up to 999, it goes up by 1, and it maxes out at 10 if you beat the credits, if you survive the credits. However, A is extremely difficult and requires basically maximum consistency to achieve. So in every section, every 100 level section except the first section, in which it internally counts it as 0 to 199, you have to get either 6 Tetrises, 4 Tetrises and an all clear, 5 Tetrises and clearing the section time requirement, or 3 Tetrises and an all clear, and beating the section time requirement. And if you do that in those sections, you get 1 point in A. However, even if you play perfectly and just get Tetrises the whole time until 999, 6 Tetrises every time, for example, you're still only going to get 9. And you can't get 10 unless you reach 999 in less than 5 minutes and 57 seconds, which essentially necessitates you taping down the extra button and just basically doing an extended sprint in ARS. at variable gravity all the way up to 20G. 9 of 10 is easy to get. Like, even if you play the slowest game of normal in the world, as long as you get 6 Tetrises per section, that is a free 9 of 10 if you beat the credits. 10 of 10? Nah, you gotta run through the game at Mach 2. I'm sorry. What is this game? I don't know. I really don't know what they've done. They have cooked, apparently. I am still scared of what they said they're going to do to Master Mode, because they said they're going to add another gimmick, as if the insane amount of things that they've already added already doesn't push the limits of human reaction. Ironically, I'd say that Master in TGM4 at the current moment is more reaction-based than Shirase, despite Shirase being faster. Because at some point in Shirase, you can just sort of you can learn to read the bone block next queue and just apply your usual stacking patterns as normal. And if you do them fast enough, you can just sort of mentally pipeline what you want to do and just stack quickly without really having to react to pieces. But here, because Cyclone only shows up on the immediate next piece in TGM4 Master, yeah, it's basically you have to react to every single piece that goes up to the next position. Oh yeah, and you know when I said I think Standard is harder? Cyclone can spawn a piece in any of the 4 rotation states in SRS. This means if you have like an S or a Z that you need to spin in order to save your stack, good luck figuring out which, if it's in the up or the down state, or in the left or the right state, when you see it in the next queue for the fraction of a second before it appears. However, as consolation, they did give us 180-degree IRS in every mode. Yay! And you don't have to let go of one rotation button to press the other one. If you want to do a quick turn, you can just... In fact, you can even just chord both buttons of the same direction in order to quick turn 180. It's not a true 180 because it still processes both rotations as 2 separate ones, but that's nice. Have fun trying to do that with Step Reset and Cyclone, though. Like, this is the best I've gotten. Let me pull up thing. The furthest I've gotten, even just from... It isn't even, like, the best I've gotten in an actual run. It's only the best I've gotten in a test... No, in a practice run in-game, if I can find the clip. Is it? Yeah, I think this is it. This is one of the most insane set of gimmicks I've ever seen them create. And what's funny is that if you want to actually stack properly when Master Peaky appears, you have to stack as if you're playing TGM3 easy. You have to set up as many clean clears as you can in a 2-wide, in like a mixed well. Like, let me just load up easy for a second. It's the same kind of, like, skill set, where you have to essentially create a 2-wide that is extremely clean, that leaves 0 residue, so that it doesn't freeze. I have no idea why they've decided to cook this so much, but they have. And I've already failed, because I don't remember how this mode works. Yeah, I feel like frozen pieces is something that people have thought about, but not in like this. Not at this speed, and not with this level of asshattery, I guess you can put it. But yeah, but not with this level of complete disregard for the player. I do not remember how to play this mode. Or like how to maximize your score in this mode. I've already failed, whatever. It's just... I don't even know how I managed to get 1080 that one time. It was probably just a massive fluke that I managed to get a really good set of clears. Okay, back to this, I guess.
Letting go.
Oh, and you know what's even funnier? You know how I said they gave both rules move reset? They made standard rules move reset stricter than TGM rules. Both rules give you 16 moves or 4 rotations, and if you exhaust one of them, it disables the other. Which is okay, fair enough. However, those values reset whenever the piece falls down in TGM rule, but they don't reset in standard rule.
I don't die.
They really do not. I think they're also aware that they've made standard rule more difficult, because some game modes actually give you like what's called master titles, which are essentially like, you know, it's like essentially every mode has its own Grandmaster grade, right? Master mode is the one that actually awards you Grandmaster. And then all the other modes have their own like master titles, except for normal and marathon. If you get the master title for a mode in TGM rule, it gives it to you in a bronze color. But if you get it in standard rule, it gives it to you in a silver color. So I think they're fully aware that they've made standard way harder than TGM. But yeah, TGM4 is a game of all time. That did not deserve Emerald. That was so messy past like 600. How did I save those section cools? Yeah, that was a master. Oh, that was terrible. The invisible roll was also terrible, but...
No.
So what are those so far? That's like an MM, question mark, an S7, and
Like
an MO.
Ready, go.
'Free, absolutely free. Oh yeah, the slight change they made in normal mode in TGM4. The ghost is enabled across every level. As useful as that would be, yes. It's no longer TLS, it's the PLS, it's the permanent landing system. That is terrible, I'm so sorry. I mean, I suppose it does help, considering you have to be holding down the extra button the whole game. Okay, good, I didn't immediately throw the run.
I have no ammo.
Rip. That was a terrible invisible. Oh my god, that was so bad. It's only master. The free all clear did not carry. No. You know what? Just to finish the
Helicopter spawn now, I'm not.
I think I'm going
So
to
I'd be
finish
a
up
plane
because
as well.
clearly these runs are going absolutely
Oh my God.
horrible.
Wait.
I actually managed to get a... Oh wait, no, that's... Wow, I'm 40... My top record is 40 seconds faster. How on earth 2020 self? What do you mean? You know what? Maybe one of these before going. One run. Here. Oh god. There you go. Just one run.
Put it end up in this top line.
I keep forgetting I have to swap the... Can you please, game, can you please remember, I want keyboard in player 1.
I didn't.
I don't want keyboard in P2, I want keyboard on P1. I've already gotten the M title, which is reaching level 1100, but I have not been able to get anywhere further past like 1300 and like something in a real run.
Ready, go.
I just want one semi-decent run. At least one thing nice about this mode is that there doesn't seem to be any Oricons, which is great. Also, I don't know if you saw that, but the pieces that are pre-rotated by Cyclone can't kill you. So if you have if your stack is sticking upwards, if you have a stack that's sticking upwards and then the eyepiece spawns vertically and you forget to pre-rotate it, yeah, that eyepiece can just kill you even though your stack hasn't reached the top of the screen yet. Fun. And here's what that other thing looks like. Just set up practice.
letting go.
Do you see why this is absolutely cooked? And let's say you didn't. Let's say the person playing didn't do very well. Like, let's say they maybe only got 15 Tiki badges, maybe only 15 Tetris badges, and like 2 T-spins.
letting go.
The freeze timer becomes much shorter. I think you also saw the fact that it's step reset, because look, if I move the pieces around, if I attempt to like stall by like moving the pieces back and forth, it starts at 1200, but look what happens.
Go.
My resets! They took my kneecaps! They took my kneecaps! 1200 takes out your move resets because, sure, why not? Step reset SRS is absolutely cursed. My fingers are getting tired. I probably have to stop now. Got exactly one good run in TGM3 before immediately pumping out with 3 horrible ones. Nice. I guess I guess now I know I can do the cools consistently, and I just have to do better at invisible. This is time to grind out some practice modes for invisible. I don't think. Yeah, no, there's no. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll just finish now. Thanks for being here, Beth.